Welcome back to the Week 9 edition of NFL Weekly. I'm Nick Sinafani.
I'm Brenden Gumula.
Brenden, start us off with our first game.
We got the Cowboys and Giants on Monday Night Football. Dak Prescott throws for 257 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. Ezekiel Elliott going off, 23 attempts, 139 yards. No touchdown to count for. This was actually his lowest scoring fantasy game yet, and he still had 13.9 points. He's a legend. Amari Cooper hauling in 4 receptions for 80 yards and a touchdown that sealed the game. Daniel Jones couldn't get anything going in the air, but on the ground he had 6 attempts for 54 yards, leading the Giants and beating out Saquon Barkley for the most rushing yards in this game. But Saquon Barkley made up for it through the air with hauling in 6 receptions and 67 yards. The Cowboys win this one 37-18 on Monday Night Football.
We head to London where the Jags are taking on the Texans. Gardner Minshew throws 2 picks, and I believe it was 3 fumbles. Not a great performance if he wants to keep his starting spot. Deshaun Watson didn't have his greatest game, but did enough to get it done, throwing for 201 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Carlos Hyde continues to be a beast on the ground for this Texans team, rushing for 160 on the ground. And Darren Fells catches another touchdown. I believe he leads all tight ends in football in touchdowns right now. This Texans defense was dominant against the Jags, and that led them to a 26-3 win as they go to 6-3.
Next we had the Heinz Field as the Steelers take on the Colts. Jacoby Brissett goes down for the Colts, so Brian Hoyer has to take over. And he throws for 168 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. Zach Pascal, 5 receptions of 76 yards and a touchdown. He is leading this Colts team. On the Steelers side of things, they couldn't really get much going through the air. Jalen Samuels leading the Steelers in receiving, 13 receptions and 73 yards. This leads the Steelers to a 26-24 win as the Colts miss a game-winning field goal.
Fitzmagic does the impossible. The Dolphins come into this game winless and come out with their lone win of the season as the Jets continue to be absolutely terrible and not live up to any expectations that they had coming into this season. How are you going to let Mike Gesicki receive for 95 yards and Devontae Parker catch a touchdown and let Fitzmagic throw for 3 touchdowns against a Dolphins team with absolutely no talent while having Le'Veon Bell, players like Le'Veon Bell, Sam Darnold, and Jamison Crowder, but they still can't get it done? I don't know what to say about this Jets team. The Dolphins win and go to 1-7 as the Jets go to 1-7 too.
We are just dissing everyone here. Mitchell Trubisky is literally the worst quarterback in NFL history. He's worse than Johnny Manziel by far, okay? He only threw for 125 yards against a weak Eagles defense. David Montgomery only rushes for 40 yards but racks up 2 touchdowns. And through the air, Zach Ertz for the Eagles gets going with 103 yards and a touchdown. The Eagles beat the Bears 22-14 as Mitchell Trubisky turns into a trash can.
We have an interesting game here in Kansas City as the still Matt Moore-led Chiefs take on the red-hot Vikings. Matt Moore did just about all you could ask of him, throwing for 275 yards and a touchdown, while Damian Williams has a fantastic day on the ground with 125 yards and a touchdown. On the receiving end, this Chiefs team is ecstatic to have Tyreek Hill back, hauling in 6 receptions for 140 yards and a touchdown. And on the Vikings side of things, nothing really got going on offense. And Matt Moore leads them to a 26-23 victory as they go to 6-3, and the Vikings go to 6-3 as well.
Next, we had the Buffalo as the Bills take on the tanking Redskins. These young quarterbacks and Josh Allen and Dwayne Haskins can't get anything going, both combining for 300 yards and a touchdown. Josh Allen having that touchdown. And for the Redskins, Adrian Peterson looks like he's still in his prime, rushing for 108 yards on 18 attempts. But that's still not enough as the Bills win 24-9 against the tanking Redskins.
We head to Carolina as Ryan Tannehill tries to win his second straight, but he comes up a little short. Tannehill, he had an alright game. He threw for 331 yards and a touchdown, but he also threw 2 big picks. And they could absolutely not stop Christian McCaffrey, who absolutely went off. 146 yards and 2 touchdowns with a long gain of a 58-yard touchdown. On the receiving end, DJ Moore had a nice game, hauling in 7 receptions for 101 yards, and Curtis Samuel and McCaffrey both caught a touchdown as well. On the Titans end, not too much to say. Derrick Henry rushed for another touchdown and continues to be a good fantasy player for his fantasy owners. But the Panthers take this one by 10, 30-20.
Next, we head to Seattle as the Buccaneers actually challenged the Seahawks in this game. Russell Wilson throwing for 378 yards and 5 touchdowns. He is having an MVP-like season. Tyler Lockett on the receiving end having 13 receptions, 152 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And Chris Carson on the ground, 16 attempts and 105 yards. That's a very good stat line for the Seahawks. And on the Buccaneers side of things, Jameis Winston actually protected the ball, which is why they were in this game. He threw for 335 yards and 2 touchdowns. 0 picks for Jameis Winston. That's a surprise. Mike Evans, another big game. 12 receptions, 180 yards, and a touchdown. Mike Evans and Tyler Lockett went off for their fantasy owners this week. The Seahawks take this one in overtime, 40-34.
We head to Oakland, where the Raiders are taking on the Lions. This Lions passing game had a great game, as Matt Stafford throws for 406 yards and 3 touchdowns. And Galladay and Marvin Jones both go over 100 yards. Galladay hauling in 132 and a touchdown, and Marvin hauling in 126 and a touchdown. But that wasn't enough, as Josh Jacobs continues to be a great pick for this Raiders franchise. This game rushing for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. Derek Carr got the job done, throwing for 289 yards and 2 touchdowns. One of those going to Hunter Renfrow and the other both going to rookies, rookie Hunter Renfrow and Foster Moreau. This was enough to get it done against the Lions as they go to 4-4 with a 31-24 victory.
Next, we got the Broncos and Browns. Baker Mayfield, not a awful game like he's used to this season, but he's still not good at all. 273 yards and a touchdown against this awful Broncos team. Nick Chubb can't get anything going on the ground, only rushing for 65 yards on 20 attempts. Odell finally getting something going, but he still only had 87 yards. This is a warning to all the headphone users on our podcast. Make sure you turn it down in 3, 2, 1. Brenden Allen of the Broncos, leading this Broncos team to a 24-19 victory over the Browns, throwing for 193 yards and 2 touchdowns in his NFL debut. Noah Fant, as a rookie, 3 receptions, 115 yards, and a touchdown of his monstrous touchdown. He literally decked like 8 guys. Aren't I right, Nick?
Yes, sir.
And Phillip Lindsay, 9 attempts, 92 yards, and a touchdown. This young Broncos offense actually came to play against this awful Browns team. The Browns have let so many people down this season as they had people thinking that they were Super Bowl contenders. Let me tell you something. They lost this game 24-19 against the 2-6 Broncos, and they moved to 2-6 themselves. They are awful. Let me mention how bad Baker Mayfield is, too. People are thinking he's in his sophomore slump. I think he just had a good rookie year. I do not think Baker Mayfield is living up to any expectations whatsoever throughout his career. The Browns suck.
Let's head to LA, where we actually have 2 good quarterbacks playing. Aaron Rodgers, who his stats might not look like it this game, but we all know he's the GOAT. He only threw for 161 yards and a touchdown as they couldn't get anything going against this Chargers defense for some reason. And you'd think the addition of Devontae Adams back from injury would help. He had 7 receptions, but only for 41 yards. And the leading receiver was Adam Lazard. Like, come on now. On the Chargers end of things, Melvin Gordon and Eckler both had nice games rushing. Melvin with 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. Eckler with 70. And Mike Williams finally getting something going. 3 receptions for 111 yards. Other than that, there's not too much to say about this one. The Chargers hold the Packers to 11 points and take a 26-11 win.
Nick is a Baltimore Ravens fan, so I'm going to let him take this game himself.
Thank you, Brenden. I am ecstatic. This team is bringing me all kinds of joy out of my body that I didn't know I had. Lamar Jackson is an MVP contender no matter what anybody says. 17 for 23, 163 yards and a touchdown, while rushing for 61 yards and 2 touchdowns against quote-unquote the best defense of all time. Taking shots at the 2000 Ravens defense as well. The addition of Hollywood Brown back, only hauling in 3 receptions for 48 yards, but he made some electrifying plays. And Nick Boyle caught his first career touchdown after being in the league for 4 years. Congrats, my man. I know you're listening to this. The defense had a fantastic game. Marlon Humphrey with his second straight game with a touchdown. I don't know what else to say. I'm going to get too excited. The Ravens hand the first loss of the season to the New England Patriots.
All right, I'm not going to get that excited, but this game was a great game. The 49ers and Cardinals put on a show on Thursday Night Football. Jimmy Garoppolo throwing for 317 yards and 4 touchdowns. Matt Breida, 15 attempts for 78 yards. And Emmanuel Sanders, his second game with the 49ers and his second straight game with a touchdown, hauling in 7 receptions for 112 yards and a touchdown. And Kenyon Drake, his first game on the Cardinals, 15 attempts, 110 yards and a touchdown. That's almost as many yards as he had for the Dolphins through 7 weeks. Kyler Murray still showing that he's a Rookie of the Year candidate, 241 yards and 2 touchdowns. But the 49ers remain 8-0, winning 28-25, and they're the only undefeated team left. We head to our Team of the Week segment, and remember, Nick is the biggest Ravens fan I know, so take it from here, Nick.
The Team of the Week has to go to my boys, the Baltimore Ravens. Everything went well this game except Cyrus Jones. You can get yourself cut, buddy. Muffing the punt. Almost bringing the Patriots back into this, but the boys held it down. Mark Ingram rushing for 15 times, 115 yards on the ground. Absolute bully. Gus Edwards, touchdown. Lamar Jackson, 163 yards, touchdown in the air. 61 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. He's electrifying. You can try to game plan him as best as you can, but it's not going to work. Hollywood Brown back, 3 receptions, 48 yards. Nick Boyle, first career touchdown. Mark Andrews, he's gone cold a little bit, but he'll be back. The defense was fantastic. Earl Thomas picks off Tom Brady. Marlon Humphrey, scoop and score. I love it. 37-20 Ravens.
And our Player of the Week segment has to go to the one and only Russell Wilson. 29 of 43, 378 yards, and 5 touchdowns. He also had 1 attempt for 21 yards on the ground. I swear, he throws a perfect pass no matter what wide receiver, no matter what play, no matter what pressure. He will get the ball into someone's hands on his team. Because he doesn't turn the ball over either, which is why, in my mind, he is the leading MVP candidate, and there's no catching up to him. Russell Wilson is electrifying. He used to run all the time, but now the electricity comes through the air. He is literally mind-blowing. He throws a perfect pass every pass he throws. It's crazy. The Seahawks take this one 40-34 in overtime.
We had a fantastic slate of games this week in Week 9, and Brenden will be back in Week 10 to recap everything, won't we?
Yes, sir, we will.
See you
I'm
next-
Brenden Garula.
I'm Nick Senafani. We'll see you next time, boys and girls.